And I'm going to send the link so I don't have it pulled up to see the comments.
Okay. All righty. Well, here we are for week 3, live on Saturday or Sunday morning here, getting ready for some start sits.
Oh, yeah. Got that coffee freshly brewed. Nice fall morning.
Real quick, just to provide you with some updates prior to the questions coming through. We do have a couple games here to keep an eye on due to weather. You've got the Eagles traveling to Washington to take on the Commanders. There is some storms expected to roll in towards the end of that game. So that may be one to keep an eye on as far as later in that game. And then in your 3 o'clock slate today, you've got the Packers at the Buccaneers. That one is projected to have some pretty nasty weather throughout the entirety of that game. So that's another one to be mindful of as you're setting your lineups here this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I look for a few turnovers and very, very run-heavy game there in the Green Bay Tampa Bay game.
Absolutely, there should be a lot of ground and pound going on there, which is good news for Leonard Fournette owners. He is expected to play, so hopefully you get to see a pretty good workload for Leonard Fournette today in that game with the weather projected the way it is. All righty, let's see here. What else do we got going on? I'll just go down through the list real quick, Brant, of guys expected to play today. So you've got the aforementioned Leonard Fournette is expected to play. Gabe Davis is expected to play. Alvin Kamara expected to play. TJ Hawkinson expected to play. J.K. Dobbins making his season debut. DeAndre Swift is expected to play. Russell Gage and Rashad Perryman are expected to play. Then you've got some unlikely guys, some doubtful guys. You've got Kadarius Toney, Christian Watson, Jacoby Myers are all unlikely. And then as far as your game time decisions, you've got James Conner. You've got Justin Herbert, who I expect to play. He's getting that pain-killing shot that we just had talked about, Brant. Still likely to try, and I imagine if there's any inkling of being able to play, he'll be on the field. Jerry Jeudy is a game time decision for Sunday Night Football. And then Dalton Schultz, that's one to keep your eye on as a game time decision for Monday Night Football. So if you're on the fence and you've got another tight end on your roster that you trust that plays in the noon slate today, I would advise starting those and not leaving yourself high and dry there on Monday Night Football.
Absolutely. Looking like a few good games. Lots of good games this week. Some ones that stand out that are going to be real fun to watch will be the Miami and Buffalo games. Going to be a fun one to watch.
Absolutely. After last weekend's games, there may be more that don't look too appealing that'll end up being games of the week. So, looks like we got our first question of the day from Aaron. Aaron asks, Marquise Brown or Christian Kirk? This one's Christian Kirk, pretty clear cut and dry for me. The Cardinals' offense has looked pretty stagnant through 2 weeks, with the exception of the second half of this last Sunday's game against the Raiders. But on the flip side, Christian Kirk's looked heavily involved in that Jaguars offense is much improved. They are playing the Chargers today, so a little bit of a tougher defense there for the Jags, but I lean Christian Kirk pretty handedly in this one.
Yeah, I also lean Christian Kirk there. What he's done, and he's working from the slot, I don't see him seeing too much J.C. Jackson on the outside. So, yeah, I would lean towards him also.
Absolutely. Mark asks, start Tua against the Bills or Derek Carr? Go ahead.
I'm going to lean Carr this one. This game really intrigues me there in Tennessee. I think that he's going to have to get Adams really involved. Adams is coming off a 12-reception week, and I don't see the Vegas wanting to start 0-3, so I see them coming out and launching that ball around, especially if Jacobs is missing today.
My only hesitation I think I'm probably leaning Derek Carr as well, Brant, but my only hesitation on that is the simple fact that Tennessee's offense has looked putrid, so I'm not sure how much throwing Derek Carr will have to do over the course of the entire game, whereas I still see Tua and the Bills game being a potential shootout. So I think you probably start Derek Carr. I think it's probably a little safer floor in my opinion. I'm not sure we see the 6 touchdown performance from Tua again this week.
Yeah, definitely don't see that one.
Although the Bills are missing several key pieces on their defense this week. So, I mean,
I did see that.
But I think the floor is probably still safer. Ceiling's higher with Tua, but floor is safer with Carr, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Joey Sweeney asks, A.J. Dillon, the running back for the Packers against the Buccaneers, or Jeff Wilson, the running back for the 49ers against the Broncos?
This one here is a real good toss-up. I see a heavy dose of that rush game in Green Bay and San Fran and them using some dump-off passes. I think I'm actually going to lean Dillon on this one. I just think that we're going to see him tote that ball quite a bit. I don't see them, especially if it's storming. So, yeah, I think I'm going to lean Dillon on this one.
I think I actually go Jeff Wilson, and solely because I think the Buccaneers' run defense is slightly better than the Broncos' run defense. Jeff Wilson was heavily involved last week, and then Terrion Davis-Price also got banged up and won't play this week. So it's Jeff Wilson Jr., Marlon Mack, and undrafted rookie Jordan Mason.
I forgot BP did go down.
Yeah, so I lean Jeff Wilson pretty heavily there. So you've got the FatBoyz split on that one, Joey.
Yeah. So
Aaron asks, Conklin or Kyle Pitts? I don't know if you could see this on the live. I've got the Pitts on today. I'm hoping for the Pitts breakout, getting back on track here. I'm still going to lean Pitts in this one just solely based on the fact that Kyle Pitts has still been targeted. It's just not been – the numbers haven't been there. The Seahawks and Falcons play at the 3 o'clock slate today. And I just assume that Arthur Smith's going to find a way to get Kyle Pitts in 0-2 to start the season. I think you're going to have to find a way to get the weapons into your better players' hands today and let them try to make some plays.
Yeah, there's no lean on my side. It's full blown go Kyle Pitts this week. It's easy start there for me.
Frank asks, Carson Wentz, Joe Burrow, or Tua? For me, Brant, I think I probably go Tua. The Eagles' defense has looked really, really good through 2 weeks against the pass. Mm-hmm. So I look for Carson Wentz to kind of come back to earth a little bit this week. He's been playing pretty out of the realm of what I expected, I guess I should say. And then for Joe Burrow, the Bengals are playing the Jets, and man, the Bengals just have not looked good offensively. I don't think that stays that way forever. And this is probably a very, very likely get-right game for the Bengals. But until I see that, I'm probably it's Joe Burrow. I don't know. Let's take the obvious one out. For me, I take Carson Wentz out. That's the obvious one.
Yeah, Carson Wentz easy out there.
So then it's Tua against the banged-up Bills secondary with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Or Burrow against the Jets with Chase, Boyd, and Higgins.
So the way I see this one, I'm going to jump in real fast. The way I see this one is if it depends on the rest of your roster. If you want the safe play, I think you go Tua. If you want the chance to really ball out and see Burrow get right, if you have if you feel good and comfortable with your roster, I'm going to start Burrow. If you need the base to make sure that you get your points, I'm going, but that's a toss-up. I think Burrow gets right. It's a good toss-up to have, and I think after this week you'll be extremely happy to have both Burrow and Tua. I think they both – honestly, I see them finishing 9-10 this week probably, so right there together.
Yeah, I think either one of those two, just depends on which one you're more comfortable with. If you've got a stack with one of those two quarterbacks with one of their pass catchers, go that way. If not, just whichever one you feel most comfortable with. Mike asks, best flex, Cordero Patterson, Allen Robinson, or Devin Duvernay? Leaning towards Patterson. Yeah, so you've got the Falcons and Seahawks with Cordero Patterson. You've got Allen Robinson against the Cardinals or Devin Duvernay. Where are the Ravens at here this week?
Oh, Ravens have New England in New England.
Yes, they do. Man. I'd like to think that Patterson will have a pretty decent day today. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of defense on either side of the ball in that Falcons Seahawks game. I think that one could be one where you see a lot of fantasy relevancy come this week. And I'm just not sure I'm in love with what Allen Robinson's seen through 2 weeks. Last week was significantly better than that opening night, Thursday night game against the Bills. I probably go Cordero Patterson out of these three just because you have the safe floor with the rushing possibilities there. But Allen Robinson's probably the sexier play, if you will.
Yeah, I think Allen Robinson definitely is a sexier play. Seattle allows so many yards for pass catching backs. The one thing that does scare me is that he did only see one target last week. Cordero Patterson did, but yeah, I think I'm leaning Patterson. I see him taking advantage of the weak linebacking core there in Seattle.
Okay. Chris Olave or ETN half point PPR. So you've got the Jags at the Chargers, and you've got the Saints at the Panthers. So I did, interestingly enough, see a stat that Chris Olave pretty handedly leads the league in air yards this season so far. And granted, it is early; it's only been 2 weeks. But with it only being half point PPR, I think I lean ETN. Again, safer just because of the rushing totes he's going to get. And he's going to get some targets as well. It's just there's so many mouths to feed. And I really think that New Orleans pass catching offense could simply just be the hot hand each week. And you do got to remember you've got one of the best pass catching backs in football back this week in Alvin Kamara in that offense. So I think this week I probably go Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I'm leaning ETN also. I think the carry upside is always there with him, and he'll see he's guaranteed to see 2 or 3 targets probably this week, especially when I feel like they're going to be playing from behind pretty quickly.
Absolutely. 2 questions. If Herbert doesn't play, Mike Williams or Tyler Lockett. So let's talk about that first question, and then we'll move into the Jacobs or Michael Carter. If Herbert does play, it's an obvious one, right? If he doesn't play, it's also obvious in my mind. Again, I like Tyler Lockett against the Falcons this week, but I still think you probably go Mike Williams either way in this week's game. I just think Mike Williams is too valuable with Keenan Allen being on the sidelines, regardless of who's throwing the ball there in Los Angeles, and I expect it to be Herbert. So.
Yeah, I'm going to split this one. If Herbert doesn't play, I'm leaning Lockett because I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Austin Eckler in this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars to get behind that decent pass rush that Jacksonville has. So I actually lean Tyler Lockett because, correct me if I'm wrong, you follow the Falcons a little closer. Does A.J. Terrell shadow the number 1, or does he just play his side?
He hasn't so far this season. He does match up against him more often than not, but he doesn't exclusively follow, no.
Yeah. If Herbert doesn't play, I think I lean Lockett. If Herbert plays, it's obvious. You start Mike Williams. But yeah, I lean Lockett if Herbert doesn't play.
Okay, so let's dissect this second part. You've got Josh Jacobs or Michael Carter in full point PPR. This one to me is Michael Carter pretty handedly. Again, I think the Jets are going to end up behind in this game against the Bengals, so I expect there to be a lot of pass catching work for Michael Carter out of the backfield. Whereas Josh Jacobs does have that virus he's dealing with and may not play. He's going to be a game time decision. So even if he does play, does he get a full workload? I don't know. I lean Michael Carter on this one just because there's so many question marks around Josh Jacobs today.
Yeah, I lean Michael Carter also. I even if Jacobs plays, I don't see him getting a full workload. And that's a guy with an illness that he could play 2 snaps. Next thing you know, he's on the sideline not feeling good with the tummy trouble. So yeah, I'm going to lean Michael Carter because you should get a full game out of him, and you cannot guarantee that out of Jacobs this week.
Absolutely. Do I trust Connor in Arizona or use Hilaire or Pollard in his spot? And then in the case, who do I put as my flex? Julio or any of those mentioned, or Patterson? If James Conner plays, I think he has to be in your lineup. However, I really think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be in for a pretty good game today as well. I know, Brant, you're a lot higher on Pollard right now than I probably am. Not that I'm not interested in Pollard, or not that I don't think Pollard's been productive, but I think I probably go Hilaire if I'm having doubts on Connor. And honestly, Hilaire would probably be my number one for my flex over Julio as well, and probably right there with Patterson. This one's kind of all over the place. It's got me in my feels a little bit. There's not really a wrong way to go here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm leaning Hilaire here over pretty much everybody here on there, unless Connor does play. Keep a close eye on Connor. If he plays, he's the obvious start, I think. But CEH has been too good not to play over the other ones. I understand he's been, hasn't seen very many carries, but where he sees the carries and the volume he sees are the red zone opportunities he sees is too good not to have in your lineup until that slows down.
I do want to know if Walleye Wrangler is a fisherman, if he knows our friend the crappie addict. That's interesting name there. I just caught that. So good question there. Good problem to have as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Hayden Hurst or Logan Thomas. I'm in the scrap pile at tight end. I'm not sure either one of these really constitute as being in the scrap pile. I think both of them have been fairly productive to this point. I actually went and picked up Logan Thomas as George Kittle insurance in our home league for our Dynasty home league. I lean Logan Thomas just because I think the corners are going to do a fairly good job of taking away Dotson and McLaurin this week. So I look for Thomas to have a pretty good game, but also Hayden Hurst. He's looked to be somebody that Joe Burrow is starting to gain interest in. So I think you're in a good problem. I don't necessarily consider that the scrap pile.
No, absolutely not. I am leaning Logan Thomas this week because of that reason right there. I do believe those corners in Philly lock it up a little bit tighter against those wide receivers. So I think Logan Thomas is going to be the man that's going to have to move the ball. We've seen as well as Philly moves the ball and scores, Washington's probably going to be playing from behind pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Oh, we got a little question from the producer, the guy behind the scenes. So Josh is asking Carson Wentz or Tom Brady, and I know he kind of heard us talking before we got live. I think I'm leaning on sitting everything in that Tampa Bay Packers game, not with the running back tag behind their name. So as much as I'm not a huge Carson Wentz guy, I think you probably go Carson Wentz in that game.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm on the same side as that, and I absolutely hate saying that on times. But, yeah, I think you got to lean Carson Wentz on that play there.
Daniel says, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Raheem Mostert, Brandon Cooks, Breece Hall in the flex.
That one's almost easy for me. I'd lean Brandon Cooks. He's one of the safest plays always. And, I mean, we talk about it all the time, how he's so disrespected. He's almost guaranteed to see targets. They're playing
the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, they're playing Chicago Bears. Pretty weak defense. I lean Brandon Cooks. I just think that's the safest play here.
Brandon Cooks is probably the safer play, and in my opinion, probably the safest ceiling as well. Breece Hall is athletic enough that he could rip off, a 75-yard touchdown run at any given time. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we've seen him, get a 30-some snap share and still end up in the end zone twice. So really there's a lot of ceiling in all these guys. But Brandon Cooks is probably the one that I'd start just because you're guaranteed so many targets there and a real safe floor. Tony says, take a chance with Herbert or go with Jimmy G. So I think you're, Tony, I think you're in luck here. I think we should have a pretty clear decision on Justin Herbert prior to the start of that game, with it being a 3:00 game. And then you're very lucky in the fact that you have the Sunday night game to pivot to if Herbert ends up ruled out. But I think the golden rule here is that it's still just week 3. Yes, I know he's dealing with a nasty injury, but if Herbert plays, you play Herbert.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, this is a great problem to have right now, is that you do have somebody to pivot to if he happens to sit in the late half. But yes, if Herbert plays, you start Herbert.
Absolutely. Another Herbert question. This one's a little different. We got Herbert against the Jags or Jared Goff against the Vikings. Again, this one's a little different in the fact that your other quarterback plays in the noon slate. But I do expect that Vikings-Detroit game, in my opinion, it could be one of our highest scoring games of the noon slate. Goff has looked, very good. He's got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's having an unreal season. He's expected to have TJ Hawkinson back this week, expected to have a big role with DeAndre Swift. I don't think you can go wrong with this one. Again, based on the fact that we don't have 100% confirmation yet, if it's not told by the noon slate whether Herbert's playing or not, I'm probably starting Jared Goff.
Yeah, I'm leaning Goff on this one too. Minnesota just got torched by Philly on Monday night this week, and it's kind of a shorter week for them. I'm definitely leaning Goff on this one. Unfortunately, I wish they both played at the same time, so you would know if Herbert played, but I got to lean Goff for the safest play.
Yep. Kyler or Kirk Cousins, 4-point passing touchdown. So again, we just talked about the Lions and the Vikings game probably being pretty high scoring, and then you've got the Cardinals against that Rams defense. I think I probably go Kirk Cousins with the simple fact it's not a primetime game. He's probably shouldn't choke in this one. But again, like you alluded to, they just kind of got caught with their pants down on Monday Night Football last week. Didn't look good offensively. I expect a big bounce back for the Vikings this week.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Kirk Cousins here. Like you said, this is actually the second highest scoring game that the odds have this week for over-unders. I'm going to lean Kirk Cousins. Kyler Murray is playing the Rams, who do have a good pass rush. They've seen him quite a bit. They normally – scheme against him pretty well. So, yeah, I'm going to lean Kirk Cousins this week.
Absolutely. Tony says he needs a running back 3, PPR, Damon Pierce or Ramondre Stevenson. All right, Brant.
I agree with you, and I'm going to let you handle this because you read it and you had a good feeling on it.
So I have to swallow my pride a little bit. I've been one of the guys holding the brakes on the hype train there for Dameon Pierce. But head coach Lovie Smith came out this week and said that Dameon Pierce and the way Dameon Pierce carries himself and plays with a lot of heart is exactly what he wants his team to emulate. He is facing his former team, the Chicago Bears, this week, so I expect him to do Lovie Smith, that is, to do everything he can to get a win, and I think that includes high amount of touches for Dameon Pierce this week. On the Ramondre Stevenson side, it's Bill Belichick, and he's never going to let us have a fantasy relevant running back unless we happen to find another LeGarrette Blount who just finds the end zone, 1,000 times in a season. So I probably go Dameon Pierce on this one pretty decisively, as much as it pains me to say that. Caesar with Kyle Pitts or Gerald Everett in full PPR. It's Gerald Everett for me. As much as I want it to be Kyle Pitts, we just haven't seen Kyle Pitts produce the way we've been looking for at this point, whereas Gerald Everett has been producing each week, especially with Keenan Allen still out. Gerald Everett's been one of Justin Herbert's favorite targets. I stay with Justin Herbert or with Gerald Everett on this one this week.
Yeah, definitely. I lean Gerald Everett too this week. Even if Herbert doesn't play, I do still lean Everett because I think they'll lean a little more on the tight end here. The quick, easy dump offs. So yeah, I lean Everett also.
Kevin says J.K. Dobbins if he plays or Damian Harris. If J.K. Dobbins plays, I'm going J.K. Dobbins. I know he logged some full practices this week, which was very good to see. that run game there in Baltimore, with the exception of Lamar Jackson, has been putrid. I can't imagine they don't give J.K. Dobbins 15 plus carries this week out of the backfield, along with some pass catching dump offs there from Lamar. I think J.K. Dobbins should have a big game. And then back on the Damian Harris side, it's Bill Belichick. And last week it was Damian Harris. So who knows, this week it might be Pierre Strong. I don't know. If I don't have to start a Patriots running back, I probably try to avoid it. So I would start J.K. Dobbins pretty decisively here.
Yeah, I'm leaning Dobbins too. If he plays, he's a start for me. I don't see him getting a full blown heavy dose workload, but I see him getting enough to definitely do a little bit better than Damian Harris there, because once, like you said, it's Bill Belichick.
Yep. So Josh says, Burrow or Wilson? I've been extremely disappointed with Wilson thus far. haven't we all? I'm not sure anybody is excited by what they've seen out of Russell at this point, except for maybe the Seahawks fans. Maybe Seahawks fans who were rooting for him not to excel and make them look goofy for that trade. Yeah, I think I go Joe Burrow in this one. Not that Joe Burrow's been like, light your pants on fire, exciting at this point. But I think it's easier to see a Joe Burrow bounce back than a Russell Wilson at this point. And again, the Bengals have a pretty easy defense they're going against in the Jets this week, whereas Russ has got to contend with that 49ers pass rush. I lean Joe Burrow on this one.
Yeah, I easily lean Joe Burrow on this one. Wilson's been disappointing. Now I do expect Wilson to get back on track, but until he does, I'm leaning Burrow.
Absolutely. Corbin, good to see you again this week, buddy. TJ Hawkinson is killing me on the inside. I'm tempting to start Robert Tonyan this week because they have no weapons. Talk me out of it. It's easy. The rain is going to be an issue. The weather there in that Tampa Bay game does not look to be promising. And again, if that happens, I expect the run game to be the focal point. Hawkinson, on the other hand, is in a game that I look to see the scoreboard flash several times in. So I think for me, I understand the frustration and the hesitation. And if that weather was anything different in that Tampa Bay game, I'd probably have a harder time talking you out of this. But with the weather being forecasted the way it is, I think you go TJ Hawkinson all day here.
Yeah, I'm leaning it. I expect that, like you said, that game to be lighting up the scoreboard in Detroit. So yeah, and that weather in Green Bay scares me, in Tampa Bay, but yeah, I'm leaning TJ Hawkinson.
Superflex League. Who do you start at Superflex? Aaron Jones or Tom Brady? That's a very tough question there. Yeah. I mean, in Superflex, it's really hard not to start two quarterbacks. I mean, this would be the one questionable game here, because my gut tells me that it's going to be the running backs that are the focal point of this game. So I have a really hard time telling you to leave Aaron Jones out. And Tom Brady has not been good this year so far. Again, a lot of his pass catchers are questionable. And Russell Gage and Julio Jones and Rashad Perryman. I go Aaron Jones, but it's so hard not to take advantage of being able to start those two quarterbacks. Brant, what's your take on this one?
I'm taking Jones also. I think it's really hard, not like you said, not to take the quarterback, but I'm leaning Jones. I see him getting the easy dump off passes. They're not going to want to throw through that wind and that rain. And we all know Rodgers is very, very smart with dealing with weather and everything else too. So yeah, I've got to lean Aaron Jones on this one.
Tyler, I'd like to see the rest of your lineup to see if there's a way you could get both of these players in, if possible. I don't know how that looks, but because it's just so hard not to start those two quarterbacks. But if you can't play Aaron Jones anywhere other than the super flex spot, I play him there.
I mean, if that's where you're deciding on having to play Aaron Jones, I think that roster's got to look pretty good. You got to have some good
Absolutely.
1 and 2 running backs there because Aaron Jones has been
Absolutely.
pretty decent this year.
Absolutely. Kevin says Marquise Brown or Cordero Patterson for the flex. Man, I'm not a huge Marquise Brown fan this year.
Not either.
I definitely think he takes another step back even when D-Hop comes back after week 6. And I think, on the other hand, Cordero Patterson should have a pretty good game this week. He's much safer, in my opinion, just due to the fact that he is going to run the ball a few times at least. So I go Cordero Patterson here.
Yeah, I'm taking Patterson. I'm definitely not a Marquise believer, and he's going to see a whole lot of Jalen Ramsey in that Rams secondary today. Yeah, I'm leaning Patterson.
Absolutely. Alan says Tua or Stafford. Again, I think we're getting a lot of questions on Tua because we did see the game from Tua that everybody's been waiting for the last several years. And I did see a stat, and I'm pretty sure it was shared on the Fantasyholics Facebook page yesterday, that Tua has never lost to a quarterback that has an O in their last name. And you've got Matthew Stafford that has an O in his last name this week. I guess they're not playing each other, so irrelevant. My bad. I don't know. Matthew Stafford has not looked good this year. He's thrown 5 total interceptions, and 2 of them were last week against my Atlanta Falcons. Whereas Tua had the explosion. I think I still go Tua here just because they're going to need to put points on the board to keep up with that Bills offense, and they should be able to do it against the Bills defense this week. Whereas that Rams game, I could see the Rams getting up to an early lead and utilizing that run game this week.
Yeah, I too also lean Tua on this one. I actually went out and had the decision between Stafford and Tua, and I pulled him in one of my leagues. So I'm sitting right there with you, Alan, starting Tua over Stafford.
Hey, guys. Sean says, hey, guys, desperation mode already standard league. Take a shot on Dobbins over Ramondre for flex. Yes, you start J.K. Dobbins over Ramondre Stevenson in your flex.
Yeah.
Especially in a standard league. I absolutely take Dobbins this week.
Yeah, that one's pretty cut and dry there. I'm taking Dobbins. He's got that home run ability, and you know that he's going to be the number 1 back there because nobody's been able to do it since, this year at all.
Matt, I've seen this question sitting over on the comment side for a few seconds here, and I've been looking at this one, and I emphatically say James Robinson because he has been the guy right now. He's at running back 6 in PPR formats. He's looked amazing through the first 2 weeks. And Gabe Davis is expected to play. And with Isaiah McKenzie, with Stephon Diggs, I wonder how hard the Bills push him this week, how many targets he gets this week. Whereas I know James Robinson's going to have a pretty healthy role. So I think I go James Robinson just due to the simple fact that I expect him to be on the field more and be more utilized than Gabe Davis.
Yeah, I lean James Robinson too. He is proven to be the guy there in Jacksonville, and in order to keep the ball out of that high speed offense in LA, I think you got to run the ball more. I lean James Robinson.
Bruno says J.K. Dobbins or Chase Edmonds. I'm almost leaning Dobbins just because Mostert took majority of the work and they didn't use Edmonds much at all on the 2-minute offense of their comeback against the Ravens, and they play the Bills this week. Yeah, it's again, this is another one where it's J.K. Dobbins, and I know J.K. Dobbins has been the most questioned guy this week so far in this live. And I'd hate to see a lot of people get disappointed, but it is his first game back coming off of a pretty nasty injury. But again, the Ravens' run game has not looked good, with the exception of Lamar Jackson, as we mentioned earlier. And I expect J.K. Dobbins to have a healthy load. And I know, Brant, you've been following this one close because you own Raheem Mostert in a few dynasty leagues. And he did have most of the work last week. So I know what I'm getting with J.K. Dobbins as far as what his role should be. I don't know what Chase Edmonds' role will be. So I go J.K. Dobbins on this one as well.
Yeah, I go Dobbins also. And yes, I have been following this one real close because I own Mostert and Dobbins in that same league. So yeah, I lean Dobbins on this one. I'm not trusting that Miami backfield quite yet.
Yeah. And I did see Tyler followed up to us, Brant, and said he has Leonard Fournette and DeAndre Swift as running back 1 and 2 in that super flex league. So yeah, Aaron Jones isn't probably supplanting either one of those guys. So unfortunately, in a super flex, you're probably not starting Tom Brady this week as your quarterback too, as odd as that is to say.
Yeah, I'm starting Jones also still.
Kevin says Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or Jared Goff? Jared Goff. Again, I'm having a really hard time. First of all, we haven't seen Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers be Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers yet this year. And Jared Goff is playing exceptionally well. Jared Goff does have a healthy pass catching room. Expected to get his tight end back this week, or have his tight end this week rather. And again, they play in a game that is projected to be high scoring. Whereas I'm not so sure that Green Bay game will be getting out of hand anytime soon on either side of the ball. So I go Jared Goff here.
Yeah, I also lean Goff on that one.
Bruno says Stafford, and it's close. Cardinals have a terrible secondary, and he'll chop them up. Got to wait another week on Tua. Bills shut down Stafford, and they're much better on defense than Baltimore defense they played a week ago. Yeah, I mean, the Bills are better defensively than the Ravens, with the exception that I would say that the Ravens have been pretty good through the first 3 quarters defensively in both of their games. And then it seems to be a fatigue issue, which should get better as the season progresses. But that Bills defense is missing some key players. You know, Dame Jackson's out this week after that brutal hit he took. Hyde is out as well. They're banged up in that secondary, and I think Tua could exploit that. Again, he's got in my opinion, 2 of the premier wideouts in football, and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Who are both guys you can get the ball to them and let them use their yak ability to get points for Tua. So I think it's probably still 2 over Stafford. And yes, you're right. The Cardinals do have a terrible secondary, with the exception of Budda Baker, who has a tendency to make some plays. And Stafford has had a ball control issue to this point. So I still think I go Tua in this one. Again, he also has the rushing upside. So I lean Tua still.
Yeah, I still lean Tua. I think he exploits them, and with Tyreek and Waddle, like you alluded to, the yak ability and the touchdown ability for those 2 guys is amazing. So yeah, I'm leaning Tua against the Bills. That's supposed to be the highest scoring game this week too. So easily.
Jennifer says Pitts or Higbee. Pitts has been such a disappointment. Yes, Pitts has been a disappointment. As a Falcons fan, it looks like we spent our first-round draft pick in last year's draft on a decoy for Drake London. But Kyle Pitts is probably the most explosive player in the Atlanta offense still. And I still think Kyle Pitts is a guy that he could take the top off at any given time. I still think Kyle Pitts is probably the play in Atlanta, especially if you drafted him. You're probably not sitting him until you absolutely have to. And, you know, if he has another disappointing week here in week 3, a lot of people are probably going to pivot off of him. But I still think I go Pitts over Higbee at this point.
Taking Pitts over Higbee also. Once again, this is a get-right game, I think, for Kyle Pitts against Seattle's weak secondary. We have nobody that's going to be able to even probably stand close to hanging on to him.
Jason says Jacoby Myers is not expected to play, so I need 2 of these 3 in a PPR. Dortch, Dameon Pierce, and Josh Palmer. I don't own Allen, and he's still questionable. Palmer is iffy until he's ruled in or out. Yeah, okay, so Dameon Pierce is – man, I hate doing this because I've been so off the hype train. But Dameon Pierce is the obvious one here for me to start. And then if – I doubt Keenan Allen plays this week. I'd be shocked. he probably will now that I'm saying that, but I think I probably still start Joshua Palmer just because he is a guy that Herbert's been looking at quite a bit in the first 2 weeks. I think I probably go Damian Pierce and Palmer here, but it's close for me.
Yeah, it's pretty close to me. Close for me also with Palmer and Dortch, but I Pierce is easy. The one of those two, and yeah, I think I'm gonna lean Palmer. That's an explosive offense, and Palmer has a chance to really blow up. Now, if they both play same time, there's your plus. There is if Allen does play, I lean Dortch. But if Allen's out, which it's sounding like he's going to be, Eileen Palmer, and they both play at same time, so yeah, you'll know which one to ride with.
Kevin says Garrett Wilson over Adam Thielen. That's the right play, correct? I'm not so sure it is. Garrett Wilson had an amazing game last week. He's been the most targeted player in the red zone to this point of the season, and I expect him to have a good game. Whereas Thielen's usage has been pretty minuscule, with the exception of really last week's fourth quarter against the Eagles. But Thielen, in my opinion, is probably a guy for the Vikings. In order to get going, they're going to have to get Thielen the ball, because if they start becoming one-dimensional and it's just all Justin Jefferson, as good as Justin Jefferson is, they're not going to win real football games that way. So I think Adam Thielen's going to have to start getting involved. And I think Garrett Wilson's probably the play here with Joe Flacco starting. When Zach Wilson comes back, I think you have to reevaluate that. It's probably Garrett Wilson, but it's extremely close for me.
Yeah, I would lean Wilson also here. Adam Thielen is one of the most reliable red zone targets that Cousins has there, but Garrett Wilson's ability to explode and see ample amount of catches is going to be crazy in that offense.
Jason says rank these quarterbacks: Lawrence, Mariota, and Fields. I'm going to rank them as for this week, more so than overall, because I'm not sure which one you're looking for here. But for this week, I probably go Mariota, Fields, Lawrence. I know Fields only threw the ball 9 times in week 2, but based on the defenses those guys are playing this week, the Chargers defense being the best, the Texans being the second, and the Seahawks probably being the least good out of those 3 defenses, I probably rank them based on that this week.
Yeah, I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going to go Mariota, Fields, and Lawrence. Fields' upside's too good with his rushing ability. Lawrence is going to struggle a little bit with that amazing pass rush that the Chargers have. And I think Mariota is the safest play this week against Seattle.
DK or Damian Harris in the flex for PPR. It's DK probably for me. Again, that Atlanta defense is not anything to write home about tremendously. And again, Bill Belichick, I don't know what running back I'm going to see featured this week. Damian Harris looked the part last week, but does Bill Belichick let him continue that? I'm not so sure. Whereas DK has been targeted 7 and 6 times respectively in his 2 games for Seattle. He's on the field for almost every offensive play they run. I go DK here in a game that I expect to see a lot of points put on the board.
Yeah, I'm gonna go lean DK also here. This one's pretty PPR. He's gonna get seed targets. Seattle's probably gonna be playing from behind, just like we have been, just like we did last week. So yeah, I'd lean DK.
Daniel says Allen Robinson, Jeff Wilson, or Cortland Sutton in the flex. If you need the home run upside, which again you should know that by Sunday night, if you need the big play, it's Cortland Sutton for me. If you need the safe play, you're winning or you're real close in your matchup, I think it's Jeff Wilson. But if I'm looking for the explosive play, I probably put Cortland Sutton in. It's always nice to have 2 real good options to put in your flex later in the afternoons to see what you need as far as points on your fantasy team. and again, by Sunday night, you should have a pretty good idea. I probably would say Jeff Wilson just because of how safe he is and how many touches he should have. But again, if you need that big play, it's Cortland Sutton for me.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Jeff Wilson's a safer guy. Sutton is going to be able to possibly put you over the top. So yeah, I'm taking Sutton.
Absolutely.
Or Wilson, sorry.
Josh says Cam Akers or Rashad Penny. Yeah. Man. I don't like this one. I'm not sure there's a right answer here. I think, Brant, I'll speak on Penny a little bit here. I think that there should be more. Man, I don't even know if I can say that correct. I don't think either one of these are a bad play, first and foremost. I don't. It just depends on Darrell Henderson and Kenneth Walker here, really, because I think both the Rams and the Seahawks will run the ball plenty of times today. But which of those four mentioned backs is going to be the guy on their team? I think I lean Rashad Penny in this game against the Falcons, just because Kenneth Walker did play last week, his first week off the injury. Penny hasn't looked great, but he also hasn't looked bad to this point. I think I go Penny probably just because, week one we saw the Darrell Henderson show, and then last week it was kind of the Cam Akers show. I mean, his numbers were a little bit better than Darrell Henderson, but Darrell Henderson is still there, and I know what I get out of Darrell Henderson, which I'm not sure what I get out of Kenneth Walker yet. So I probably lean Rashad Penny this week again in that one.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Penny also. I think the game kind of got out of hand for Seattle. They weren't running the ball as much. So, yeah, I'm leaning Penny because Henderson still outsnapped Akers pretty handily. I know Akers' numbers were a little bit better than Henderson's last week, but I'm going to lean Penny.
Here it is. Bolden, who projects to be in a pretty good line of work if Josh Jacobs misses time, or Dontrell Hillard for the Titans. Hillard seems to be the pass catching back there in Tennessee, although Hassan Haskins looked pretty good in that role. Granted, they were completely out of the game at that point. So maybe that had more to do with it than anything else. If Josh Jacobs doesn't play, I think Bolden's probably a good play here because he's going to see the field more than Hillard will. But again, it's the same game here, so it just depends on I think a lot of it depends on that Josh Jacobs thing. If Josh Jacobs plays, I probably play Hilliard. If he doesn't play, I probably go Bolden.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to lean Hilliard on this one too. I think he's the best pass catching now. Once again, like you said, if Jacobs is out, it's easily Bolden, but other than that, it's Hilliard for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, Hillard has looked really good in that third down role there in Tennessee, and the Tennessee offense has not looked good to this point. So we'll see. But I think if Jacobs doesn't play, I think Bolden's probably the safer play. So Brant, in that 12 o'clock slate, obviously I know which game you're going to be tuned in to the 3 o'clock slate, the same one I will be this week, which is unusual, and I'm sure we won't speak a whole lot during that 3 o'clock game. Is there a certain game you're looking at in this noon game because you're really just intrigued by it, or because you have a ton of fantasy guys? I mean, with the exception of moving the Eagles game out, because we know you own everything that's relevant in the Eagles offense.
Buffalo, Miami, like I said, is very intriguing to me and should be fun to watch. Let's see. Let's run through the rest of the norm. The other one is actually Kansas City at Indy. I'd like to see if Indy can get back on track. And if they're going to have to use Jonathan Taylor to keep that ball out of Mahomes' hands. So that's another game that really intrigues me on the 12 o'clock slate.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this Saints and Panthers game here. You've got two offenses that are kind of wayward at this point, and I think you'd like to see CMC and Alvin Kamara get some heavy workloads this week. Those are two guys that are drafted pretty early in a lot of leagues, and we haven't necessarily been super happy with what we've seen out of either one of their usages to this point. So that's one I'm going to watch to keep an eye on. But I'm definitely going to be tuned into the Chiefs Colts as well.
Oh yeah.
So Jim asks Tua or Kyler Murray, again, simply based on the fact that the Bills' pass defenses or secondary is pretty banged up here. I think I lean Tua, although Kyler did look really good in that second half against the Raiders last week. I just think that Rams defense is going to be prove too much in a divisional matchup. I like Tua in this one. I think that's a game that Tua is going to have to throw the ball to keep up with the Buffalo offense and Josh Allen. So I lean Tua on this one as well. It's close, but I lean Tua.
I lean Tua because this game right here is his chance. It's a divisional matchup, and it's his chance to show that he belongs, that he is the starting quarterback there, and that so I lean Tua. I think Tua comes out, and I think he really shows that he belongs in that offense and silences a lot of critics this week. Next one, we got Miles Sanders, DJ Moore, or Zeke for the flex. I'm actually going to lean. This one hurts a little bit because my love for DJ Moore here. And I drafted Zeke late, but I'm leaning Miles Sanders. I feel like Philly might have to lean a little bit more on that run with the storms in the later quarter of that game. And Miles Sanders has proven to be the number one back there in Philadelphia. So I'm actually going to lean Miles Sanders there.
Yeah, I think, again, when you get these 3-player questions in, it's kind of nice to rule that one player out early and then make it come down to the 2 guys. And unfortunately, although Zeke's been an absolute tank in recent years, he always finds a way to crack that top 10. I just don't trust him with Dak Prescott out because that offense seems to be one-dimensional. It's easy. If I'm a defensive coordinator and want Cooper Rush to beat me, I'll take away Zeke in the run game. So then you look at Miles Sanders and DJ Moore. Miles Sanders was the focal point of that Eagles offense last week on the ground. I think Miles Sanders should have a good game this week against the Commanders as well. So I go Miles Sanders. Giovanni asks Carson Wentz or an injured Herbert. I just that Philly defense scares me a lot more than I thought it would at the beginning of this season. The pass rush is very good. The secondary is very good. And it's Carson Wentz. I still don't trust what I've seen through 2 weeks from Carson Wentz yet. And I may still be saying that after 6 weeks. Who knows with Carson Wentz? Maybe this is the resurgence of Carson Wentz. But if Herbert plays, I'm playing Herbert. He's too good not to. And I do think that Philly defense scares me to the point where I don't want to start Carson Wentz this week if I can avoid it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Herbert also here. Herbert, if he plays, he's the right answer here. Wentz scares me. He's so injury prone, so you never know when he's gonna get hurt. And Philly's defense has been on a tear, so I'm leaning Herbert.
Okay, Brant, I'm gonna let you go ahead and handle this one.
Damian Harris, Rashad Bateman. I lean Bateman. Bateman's one of my favorite wideouts this year. I plan for him to have a year or two breakout in that offense as long as Lamar figured it out. And while maybe he hasn't quite figured it out, that he is a quarterback and has to throw it, he's done a lot better this year. So I lean Bateman over Harris here.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's Bateman. The ceiling is just through the roof with Bateman. He's been electric so far this year. And again, Damian Harris, I don't know what I'm getting with him yet. I want to see several weeks in a row, consecutive weeks with Damian Harris being the guy in that backfield before I really start to get comfortable with that, because again, it could be Ramondre Stevenson this week, where last week it was Damian Harris. So I go Bateman here pretty decisively. Brad says Damian Pierce or Jeff Wilson Jr. flex half-point PPR. Based on the fact that it's half-point, I lean Jeff Wilson Jr. If it was full-point PPR, I might feel more inclined to take Pierce. But with it being half-point, I lean Jeff Wilson Jr.
I actually lean Damian Pierce. The Lovie Smith coming out saying that he wants to get this guy involved. They're playing in Chicago, so low-scoring game, lots of grounded pound. I lean Damian Pierce on this one. I like him too much this week.
Fair enough. AJ Austin asks, Curtis Samuel or Julio Jones?
I'm gonna lean.
I'm going Curtis Samuel in this one. Curtis Samuel has looked to be a guy that Ron Rivera wants to get the ball in his hands. Carson Wentz is finding ways to get the ball in his hands, and Curtis Samuel looks really good after the catch. Whereas we know with Julio and especially with his agent and his past track record, Julio doesn't seem to spend a whole lot of time on the field even when he plays. He's coming into this week questionable. If he plays, how often is he going to be on the field? I look Curtis Samuel because I think the Washington Commanders are going to have to try to find a way to keep up with the Philly offense, and I think they look to do that through guys like Curtis Samuel and Antonio Gibson this week. So I go Curtis Samuel on this one.
Yeah, I had to go back and look at the target share. He's seen 11 and 9 targets in the last 2 games. I'm going to lean Curtis Samuel also because Dotson and McLaurin are going to have rough matchups this week. So I think Curtis Samuel may be the guy that has to keep the Redskins or the Commanders in this team or in this game.
Yeah. So Brant, I'm not gonna ask you about what's on the menu all day because I know what's on the menu at the 3:00 slate because we're all getting together to watch that Falcons Seahawks game. What's on the menu for the noon slate? What are we munching on before we head to watch the game?
I think I'm just going to throw a little basic wings to have before lunch because I'm going to save this appetite for that noon game or that 3:00 game. Just something basic today. I'm probably after we're off here, I'm going to hop in the kitchen, make me a little breakfast, and get my whole day going. I think we're just going to have a little Anytizer honey barbecue wings to get my day started.
Perfect. I think we're just going chips and dip for the noon slate here, saving the appetite, kind of like you are for the exceptional meal we're going to have watching the Falcons Seahawks game. Getting together for that. So I do see we have one more question here, guys. We've got about 5 minutes left, so if you want to get any last minute questions in, now's your chance. AJ Austin asks, Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, or Matthew Stafford today? Again, just based on the fact that there's no weather elements in this game whatsoever, and the fact that it projects to be a pretty high scoring affair, I'm leaning Kirk Cousins in this one. Again, I look for a bounce back performance from Kirk Cousins this week. I think I go Kirk Cousins against the Lions in this one.
Yeah, I'm leaning Kirk Cousins. He's going to bounce back. He's just not a pro. He can't perform under the lights, but when you get him in the noon slate, he does perfectly fine. I'm going to lean Kirk Cousins here.
Absolutely. Walleye Wrangler asks, different league than my last question, but need to set flex spot. Harris, Julio, Pollard, or Patterson? Brant, what's your thoughts on this one?
I think we take Harris out pretty easily. I just don't like that backfield. I lean Patterson still in this. I think he's going to be one of the more focal parts of that Atlanta offense today. So yeah, I lean Patterson out of all these.
Yeah, I think this is one of the few exceptions where I probably don't take Harris out necessarily early. I think Julio is probably the guy I fade a little bit in this discussion. So then it becomes down to which running back I expect to be the safest play today between Cordero Patterson, Damian Harris, and Tony Pollard. I think for me, though, I probably also lean Patterson just because this should be a competitive game for both the Falcons and Seahawks, not one that they're trailing in early on either side necessarily. Again, I could be completely wrong. We'll see it at 3 o'clock slate. But I think Cordero Patterson should be in line for a fairly good workload, and he is explosive when he gets that ball. And he also steps out and lines up wide a lot. And with the defenses watching Kyle Pitts and Drake London now so closely, I think you could see Patterson get involved in the pass catching game this week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we got just a minute here, we'll wait on any last minute questions to come in. Do you realize that next week the week we get football in our background as we as we hop on here to do our start sit? I believe it was Minnesota, and I just had it up. So
that's our first London game, correct?
Yes.
Let's see.
It'll be Minnesota versus the Saints.
Yep, you got them 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time next week. So yes, we will have the game on in the background as we're recording. So that'll be really interesting to be able to do a live while we're watching some football here. So definitely look forward to that too. Guys, as always, go check out the amazing podcast that the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network puts out. You've got us two fat guys putting one out. You've got the flex, and then for you defensive player nerds, there's a very fantastic IDP podcast put out by Seth Berger every week. Mm-hmm. I've learned a lot more from it than I ever thought I would, and it's almost gotten to the point where I'm willing to dip my toes back in the IDP world. And then again, you've got, like I said, I mentioned the Flex. That's another very entertaining podcast that the producer of this live puts on, Josh Rodriguez, with his buddy AJ. So that's another one to look at there as well as you get through your week looking for advice through the course of the week. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Jennifer, I see your question down there. Do you think Derrick Henry is going to pop off this week? Pop off, I'm not sure. I think they're limiting him a little bit. As long as they keep that game close and don't let the Raiders get that game out of hand, I think you have a very good possibility of Derrick Henry ripping or popping off this week. If that game gets out of hand quick, I don't know.
I don't necessarily want to say pop off, but do I think we get Derrick Henry back to that what we're accustomed to with Derrick Henry? Yeah, I think we do this week. That Titans offensive line hasn't looked very good. And of course the Bills were all over the place last week, challenging Henry every time he had the ball. They were coming up and hitting him. I think Derrick Henry gets back to what we're more accustomed to seeing. I don't want to say pop off necessarily because popping off for Derrick Henry is a 60-point performance in PPR. So I don't know as though we see that this week, but I definitely think we see Derrick Henry back in like the top 15 running backs comfortably this week. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that does it for our time this morning. Any other questions, feel free to message us.
There's the start sit post on the Fantasy Holics page. There's some great team of guys working on that post. So jump in there, drop any questions you have. They watch that and monitor that through the course of Sunday. So if you have a Sunday night start sit question, they'll be more than happy to answer that as the night progresses. So any other questions you guys may have, feel free to pop over to there and say that to see that. And again, guys, thanks for your questions. Thanks for tuning in with the two fat boys this morning. Thanks to Josh for running the thing for us. And as always, stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.